The topic of disruption, I think, was dispensed with in the very first presentation yesterday by Paul Toe, who I think he pretty much killed it and said, yeah, of course things are being disrupted. It's pretty obvious. I'll grind through a couple of these slides pretty quickly, though, and that'll help us get quickly to lunch. So, yeah, of course, we can disrupt. We are disrupting just by taking advantage of things that big companies can't do. Innovate quickly, on and on and on. There's all these words from a study that Deloitte did a couple of years ago that can help back that up. Why? And this is part of our premise as well in terms of the aircraft we're developing, which I'll tell you about in a moment. Basic aircraft design and technology have changed little while ownership costs rise. Environmental issues are important. This is a key. Customer expectation and business needs are not optimized by legacy technology. And new markets are emerging with no preferred solution provider, particularly in the urban air mobility. But urban air mobility is defined as more than just the intra-city market. There's city to city, and there's also the cargo and packages and all that stuff. All of that is in the category of urban air mobility. So how do we do it? Well, these, again, have been covered pretty much. You have a lot of technological advances. Change is affecting the industry from all sides, though. And one of the key points I think that Antonio Campello from Embraer made yesterday was a lot of disruption will come in the form of a different business model. And I think that was really insightful. Access to capital, it's out there. Hopefully we can get access to it. I'll talk a little bit about that later. And then regulations are changing. It was a slow process, yes, but FAR 23 was a huge breakthrough for an agency like the FAA. And then in a smaller, innovative company, you've got management flexibility and a lot of employee empowerment. So we're going to help solve the issue of not enough aerospace engineers who don't want to go and work for 10 years in Boeing and then move one rung up and then wait another 5, et cetera, et cetera. They have a lot of mobility within the company and amongst the smaller companies. So all of that having been said, don't underestimate the big guys. They got the experience, they got the power, they got the technical expertise. Some have already acknowledged they can't do it, and so they're either trying to disrupt themselves or going to make acquisitions. This is what I really want to talk about. XTI Aircraft, we're building the Trifan 600, it's hybrid electric, vertical takeoff and landing, 670 nautical mile range in the vertical mode, 1,200 nautical mile range if you take off with a short takeoff using the wings to get you airborne more than just pure force. We got the convenience of a helicopter and speed and range of a business jet. Originally conceived of as sort of a business jet, corporate jet alternative with the convenience of vertical lift, it was a mechanical system that was very expensive, but still was pretty cool and seemed to have a viable market. About 18 months ago, we decided to have another look at the whole architecture, and we changed it to a hybrid electric propulsion system. We cut the price of the airplane in half. We've cut the operating cost down by 1/3, maybe to 1/4. We'll see on that. But it's significant enough that we're really driving a totally different value for the customer, and we're opening a whole bunch of new markets. We've got 64 orders for the aircraft with deposits already. We haven't even flown our prototype yet. So why is that? People are seeing the value, and all the take-up is coming from folks who may not even be in this space yet. They just want to get in and set up a service and move people from place to place. And then, of course, we still are picking up customers that want one for themselves or it's a business aircraft. So it's transformative with the hybrid electric green technology. We're doing a very disciplined but streamlined rapid development. In fact, starting from January to right in about 3 weeks, we'll fly our first prototype, a 2/3 scale, battery electric only, mainly to prove out the aerodynamics. It can take off, it can transition, it can land. I mentioned these points in the bottom right there are all the same things that are driving the market and making us really motivated to provide affordable point-to-point transportation. So the advanced technical advances are, some of these are kind of obvious, but I'll just go around and show you how this thing is set up. We're using a small 1,000 shaft horsepower engine to power 3 generators, which are there for redundancy. Then those power electric motors in each of the fans, a 260 kilowatt motor in each fan. So each one has 2, again, for redundancy. In the vertical mode, it's supplemented by a battery pack, which gets you up and away. And then once you transition, the batteries are off and recharged. very similar to the Zunum concept. And then you can fly on like 35 gallons per hour. So operating costs, as I mentioned, the recurring operating costs are really small. Lots of other advancements, taking advantage of lightweight composites and advanced flight controls, of course. So a really cool airplane. Plus, it just looks so cool. I mean, you want to see this thing fly. So with these 4 pillars are kind of the basis for our whole pitch. We have a low purchase price, low operating cost, a high performance. That would be 300 knots, 29,000 feet. We're carrying 4 to 7 passengers, and then, of course, a hybrid electric technology. We have super redundant drive system with triple redundant generators that I mentioned, dual electric motors in each fan. We have either the engine or the batteries alone can go to an emergency mode if you're in the vertical mode and get you back on the ground. In the case of the batteries, you'd have to replace them. In the case of the engine, if it were doing that alone, you have to do an inspection. So we get virtually Category A OEI accountability. Also, you have no rotor blades exposed, so there's safety on the ground. In fact, you can taxi and do everything you need on the ground without the engine on. You can either use the batteries, or we have a full photovoltaic cell layer on top of the airplane, 10 square meters, providing 4 kilowatts of ground power. So it's quiet and safe on the ground. Triple redundant flight control system and ice protection. And then, if everything goes to hell and you don't know what you're doing, there's the old escape handle, pull the parachute, and the entire airplane comes down under the parachute, very similar to the Cirrus jet. It's the same weight class and everything. Looking at affordability, here's the big breakthrough, I think, for us, and why we're getting so much take-up from people who want to start a commercial operation. Procurement costs may be more or less the same of these other categories I show here, but operating cost is significantly less. And if you fly 1,000 hours a year, which many operators do, you're going to save $1 million a year in operating costs per aircraft. Long range, I mentioned 670 nautical miles if you take off vertically. If you take off horizontally, like a regular airplane, a short takeoff, you can go 1,200 miles, and you can still land vertically as long as you're under 5,300 pounds. There's a lot of flexibility with the inside. The cabin is huge. You'll see a depiction in the video that I show, a very luxurious executive layout for the cabin. But if you want to just do like you typically do in a small transport, you can get a lot of people in the back. We show a configuration here with 7. The person in the right front seat can be another passenger, so it can be 8, because so you're at 8 passengers and not 9, as was mentioned earlier, in terms of regulations. You can do single pilot. I was going to go back and show the ranges on that. If you put 7 people in it, you can get out to 170, 180 nautical miles if you do a vertical takeoff. The 64 reservations I've mentioned have come from all over the world. We have some in the US, Brazil, Europe, Dubai, India, Japan, Australia, and more coming. The company, where are we going? Let me just talk about the company for a second. We have a very experienced management team. All of us have been involved in aviation all our lives. Almost all of us are pilots. Most of us have run organizations, started organizations, so we have the organizational management skills. And we've been through over 25 different certification programs with the Federal Aviation Administration. So I'm not telling you that we know everything we're doing. We're happy to take advice and learn from other people's experiences, but we have been there before, quite a few times. We have a former president of Cessna who's a very active board member. I'm a former CEO of a helicopter company. I was involved in a tilt rotor development program for a long time and worked with the FAA very closely on that. So we really feel as though we've got great experience. The technology is the technology. It's great stuff. There's no new inventions that need to be made between now and certification. We just got to carefully work our way through the process. The value and performance of this aircraft are going to change certain segments of the industry. And uses, I mentioned a bunch of them here, but I think what I like about operators is they'll always invent new ways to use something that once you get it into their hands. The market demand has been strong. The interest has been really high, and we already have 64 orders. And then we have this prototype, a 2/3 scale, unmanned, electric-only prototype, but 2/3 scale is a big airplane. It's not a toy. And that will fly here probably the end of this month, maybe into early October. But we're very, very close, and that has happened within a 10-month period for very little cost. Overall, though, we got a big program to execute here, and we require a lot of money. I'm hoping to meet people here who are interested in providing some of that, or at least spreading the word that we're available to take investment. The first tranche will be a $25 million slug that gets us into 2 years in. We got our first flying full-scale aircraft into a certification program. We'll build 2 more in the next subsequent years, and we're looking at a 4-year period of test and certification and getting into production roughly 5 years out, with early in the 5th year is our optimistic view. Let me talk for a minute. I was asked also to talk about crowdfunding, totally off the previous subject, but we used an SEC Reg A Plus crowdfunding effort to kind of bring in unaccredited investors, people who want to play the angel investing thing by sprinkling money here and there, maybe even in as little as hundreds of dollars. So this was set up in July of 16, long before I joined the company. And we still have it going, so it's up and running now on this startengine.com is the platform. If anybody's interested in it, you can catch me. I'll tell you more about it. But really, it's great in that it does what they say it will do. It's not as hard to get registered and set up as going through a full registration, and it allows small investors to play. It helps publicize the company a lot and a lot of other different avenues that we wouldn't normally do. And can be a good source of funding, but it's not going to change the world, and at least not when you need 175 million like we do. There's some detractors. I mean, right now I got 1,000 people out there. They're wonderful. They don't bug me that much, but every now and then I get a question a day or so from somebody, and I want to treat them as good and as appropriately as I would someone who's put in a couple $1 million. And so we do, but it's just extra work, and in the long run, you kind of wonder, is it worth it? Well, for the time being, it certainly is. We appreciate all the investors that have come in through this source, and it's a lot complicated process to get it set up. Let me start the video here, and you'll see that with this aircraft, you can take off from an airport. You can go to your home, or you can go home to office, office to a remote job site, downtown to downtown, long distance, and the flexibility is immense. So in about a month or so, we'll get a video out with the prototype flying, and try and distribute that to everybody so you can have a look and see the real thing. Right now, we've got computer-generated images and video that show you the high altitude, high speed. You can pretty much live wherever you want to if you had this airplane. That's the great interior concept for the executive cabin. And there it is, landing at your palace in Virgin Islands or wherever. Maybe Telluride. XTI is a great team. We have an awesome product. We are making significant progress, and we invite you to join the party with us. Go on Start Engine or come and talk to me, and I'd love to give you more information that way so we can get to lunch.